This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's Faith Under Fire from Family Life News. I'm Greg Gillespie, and today we get perspectives on pro-life victories on abortion at the ballot box. Kelsey Pritchard is the State Public Affairs Director for Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life in South Dakota, one of 3 states where majorities of voters turned down pro-abortion amendments. Kelsey, thank you for joining us to give us your analysis of this election.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
Let's talk about the results. There were 5 states that were putting a total protection of abortion from conception to birth on the ballot, and it passed. New York State, one of those. But there were also 3 states that turned down promotions of abortion in the state. What's your overall reaction to what voters decided nationwide and in those 3 states?
Yeah, we had victories in Florida, Nebraska, and South Dakota, and those victories over their all-trimester abortion ballot measures are really huge, and they're the first kind of victories we've seen over abortion amendments since the Dobbs decision, and they send a very big message to the abortion industry, to the left, to George Soros, so to have been pushing these. They poured $110 million into Florida, yet still lost. And it sends this huge message of when the GOP fights these ballot measures and exposes how extreme they are, these things fail. When people know what they're voting on and understand that abortion ballot measures allow abortion at any point and they take away parental rights and they force taxpayers to fund abortion, the voters overall reject that agenda. So we have victories in these states, and thankfully, with these victories, we have a way forward and a map of how we can defeat these ballot measures when we see them again, perhaps next year or 2 years from now.
What was the turnaround? I know in 2022 we were told that abortion is a losing proposition for conservatives, regardless of political party. We had special elections where the candidate who spoke out very much in favor of abortion were winners. What turned things around here, November 2024?
Yeah, I would say in 2022, I know the media tried to highlight and say that the pro-life movement is over and it's a losing issue. But really what we saw in elections in 2022 was we saw that a lot of pro-life governors and governors who had passed laws to protect unborn babies win, and win very big. One of those governors was Ron DeSantis, and he's a very popular governor in the state of Florida. And he was really the key to defeating this ballot measure in that state. He explained to people, if you vote for this, you're going to eliminate parental consent. Your daughter won't be able to take Tylenol at school without you filling out a bunch of forms, but she'll be able to get an abortion, a late-term abortion, without you ever knowing. And that could subject her to an abuser. This could subject women and girls to traffickers, taking them in for abortions. And he really made it clear to people also that this amendment would allow abortion at any point. It used the word viability, but the way they worded it and the loopholes that were in there, it would allow abortion in the 2nd trimester and all throughout the 3rd trimester. He made that very clear to the voters, and because he did that, the voters rejected this amendment in Florida. And so this is not only the blueprint for fighting abortion ballot measures, this is a blueprint for when you run for office and you're part of the GOP, because the Democrats will always make abortion one of their key issues. They're going to continue to push it. And the GOP needs to expose how extreme they are in the issue of not wanting any limits whatsoever. And they need to contrast that with a compassionate position for women and girls and for unborn children, and to bring back the humanity of the unborn child and to highlight the science of fetal development. And so we were really just pleased with Governor Ron DeSantis and would point to him as the example of how people run on this issue next time around.
Our guest is Kelsey Pritchard. She is with the Susan B. Anthony organization, and it really is a question of how everything is packaged. New York State, they called it not an abortion amendment, but an equal rights amendment. You're talking about it's not just protecting women's health care, it's affecting a fetus, a pregnancy. What are the key points for people who want to understand how to speak to conservatives, how to speak to liberals, how the folks who try to find a middle ground on abortion, the marketing, the public relations, the explanation of the real issues really is at the heart of all this, isn't it?
Yeah, and when you look at the American people and what they think on the issue of abortion, poll after poll actually shows that around 2/3 of Americans support limiting abortion after the first trimester or around that 15-week mark when science shows that they can feel pain. It's not the conservative polls that show this. It's polls across the board. It's Harvard-Harris, it's AP, NORC, and several other polls have shown this throughout the years. And Americans' view hasn't changed all that much, even since the Dobbs decision. And so the important point here is really to show that the Democrats have come to this radical position where they don't support any limit on abortion at any point in pregnancy, not in the second trimester, not even in the third trimester. And when people understand that, they reject the Democrats. They rejected Kamala Harris's extreme position. We were in 8 battleground states talking to voters about how extreme she was on the issue of abortion and changing voters' minds through those conversations. So people rejected her extremism. And the more that we can bring that to light of where they stand on this issue, the more that we can bring to light the science at 15 weeks and after the first trimester, we're talking about a baby who can feel pain, who can smile, who can suck their thumb, who you can know if it's a boy or a girl at this point. You can also start to see on the ultrasound if the baby resembles mom or dad a little bit. And these are human beings. These are unborn children, and this is how we all start out. We all start out in the same way, and the right to life is the most fundamental right that all other rights emanate from.
Kelsey, you make the distinction between the position of abortion should be legal and, in some cases, taxpayer paid all the way through all 9 months. As I read the ballot issues in these 10 states, 5 states were abortion's good all 9 months. There were some that were pushing for only in the first trimester or only until that fetal viability. Is that an answer? I know there are some pro-lifers that are very serious that from conception, this is a human being and we really can't do that. There's a lot of Americans in the middle who might be okay with an early ending of a pregnancy, but not when you get to the place where you have those very obvious signs that this is a growing human being in the mother's body.
The only ballot measure that actually drew a limit was Nebraska's Prolife ballot measure that passed that will protect babies in the second and third trimesters. The other ballot measures, some of them did use the word viability. In South Dakota, where I live, our ballot measure had a trimester framework. But when you understand the totality of those amendments and you understand the health exception that they used for the third trimester abortions in South Dakota, it allows the abortionist to be the sole decider if a woman meets a health exception. And health, the Supreme Court has said, not only includes mental health, not only includes physical health, it includes the woman's age, it includes her familial health. So familial health could be father's out of the picture, could be mom already has one child to take care of. So essentially, these ballot measures were so extreme because they allowed abortion at any point, and they let the abortionist, the person profiting from taking the life of the unborn child, to decide at what point a woman could still have an abortion. So that is why we explain these in these ways. That's why Governor DeSantis explained the Florida amendment that way. But yeah, they don't draw any sort of limit. And we found that limit in Nebraska was very popular because they already have a law in Nebraska that protects life at 12 weeks. And this just takes that law and puts it into the Constitution and makes that protection against painful late-term abortion and abortion of viable babies makes that illegal in their state and protects life at that point.
So, Kelsey, what's the marching orders? What's the game plan moving forward? What would you say to voters in these states that either have approved abortion into constitutions as legislatures make the decisions in coming years? What do pro-lifers like you and Susan B. Anthony, Prolife America, say is the next steps for folks who want to fight against that?
Yeah, I mean, legal fights are coming in these states where these measures just passed, particularly in the state of Missouri. We could see lawsuits soon to try to force them to pay for abortions with taxpayer money. That's what's happening in Michigan under their amendment. So there are a lot of legal fights ahead, unfortunately, for that state and the others where these passed. I think the good news about Missouri particularly is that their measure passed with just 51%. It was very, very close, and that was even with the pro-life side being I think it was 16-1. It was by a huge amount. So there's a future for pro-life policy in Missouri and to push back. And I just think we need to also, in even these states that don't have a good abortion law, that have a bad amendment, there's still things that we can do with pregnancy centers and to support them as they come alongside and walk with women who have unexpected pregnancies and to just be the hands and feet, really, of the pro-life movement. So there's always something we can do. There's always hope. We know that we were under the power of the Roe decision for 50 years. And so the abortion industry really has a grip on our culture and on the narrative. And it's going to take time to undo that. And so we have to be patient. We have to keep persevering and keep marching forward so that we can fight the greatest injustice of our time and be a part of the solution to the biggest human rights violation of this century.
Kelsey Pritchard is a public affairs director for Susan B. Anthony Prolife. That organization is celebrating a few wins at the ballot box this month on the abortion battles. Florida, Nebraska, she watches from South Dakota. Kelsey, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
I'm Greg Gillespie, Family Life News.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.